Welcome back to EW Morning Live. Dalton Ross and Jessica Shaw here with you on Entertainment Weekly Radio. We are now joined by the big bad from The Walking Dead Season 7, kicking off October 23rd. Negan himself. He left the baseball bat at home today. Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
No, it's here. The baseball bat's here. Yeah,
He's got hot sauce in his bag.
Right. What do you think I got a backpack for? Carry her everywhere.
Man, good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Good to see you. Thanks
man.
for having me.
Yeah, Jessica, I had an opportunity to go down and watch him work on set for Season 7, and I'm telling you, this guy, I mean, you are just cursing up a storm down there.
Yeah,
you are just, I mean, the profanities are flying left and right.
Are we talking cameras on, cameras off?
Well, cameras are on, but wait, and I wanted him to talk about it, but it's kind of, because I find it really fascinating where he knows this stuff's not going to get used, but it still definitely serves a purpose, not just for him, but the other people.
Yeah. Well, the way we've approached this character is a lot of stuff can't obviously be used on television, but a lot can be used on Blu-ray. But there's something about Negan that I found kind of changes when I can do the F takes, for instance. And so what I have a tendency to do now, what I've always kind of tried to do is, if the camera's not on me, I'll go full Negan for whoever I'm acting with. So they get kind of punched in the face with the language as well as whatever else. So there's a lot of swearing and a lot of improv and, whatever I can do to kind of scare the crap out of whoever I'm working with. And language is part of that.
And does it work? Like, do you see a difference when you're doing takes with people?
Oh, it works. Yeah. If I do a take and I do like the TV take, it can change drastically. Dalton can attest to that. It changes the tone quite a bit. And no one knows what I'm going to do at any given time. I don't like to do one take. I don't like to do it the same way, so I try to mix it up as much as possible. And a lot of that is done with language, and it's brutal.
Who gets the most unnerved?
He can always say.
Well, even in the first, before anyone's dead.
Oh, I could tell you who gets. It's for sure Andy Lankin gets the most unnerved. Starting in the last episode of season 6, it affects him. He doesn't. I think it's hard, or it was hard for him to relinquish the Rick of it all to this new character too. So it's a lot of a mental game that we play, and so I know that if Andy is off in a corner swearing and pissed in between takes, that I've got to him, and I knew that immediately in 16 when we did last year, and so. He's the most outwardly, I think, gets destroyed by this all. I think it was hardest for him to
and
deal
he's
with.
Someone who, as we know, he gets real. He does. I mean, like you have your F takes and everything. He's like kicking stuff, and he really gets into Rick's mindset.
Yeah, he sure does.
Before he shoots. So
Absolutely.
I love that you're even further taking him even next level.
It's torture. It's torture, and I love this whole cast. I mean, off camera, it's a whole different thing, and I love them all. But when we're at work, it's important that we all get it right, and sometimes in order to get it right, you have to go places that maybe aren't that fun. I mean, this has been a hard year. It's been a very hard year for everybody, including me. I mean, it's not just a great time. It's hard. You realize that these people are tortured by it. There's such passionate actors that really. You're destroying them, Negan is destroying these characters that these actors have put together for years, and they have these kind of roles down, and they know where they live and where their good spot is. And this character comes in that I'm playing and has just turned this world upside down. And so I think there's been a lot of them trying to navigate their way through this new world, which, the audience is going to get to experience, but we're doing it now. And it's been hard for everybody. And it's, as a fan of the show, I understand what they're going through, and it's been tough. It's, and then again, we say cut and it's hugs and fun. I mean, most of the time, most of the time. There's been a couple of rough days. I'm not going to lie.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Tell us. Are there people who are kind of can't look at you after
I watched him, and I can't say who. I watched him do a scene with someone, a very intense scene in someone's face, and you did back off a little bit. Like that other person needed a little time, and once it was all done, it was fine. But in between those takes, real quick, because you got to stay somewhat in it, so it's not cut. We've locked the scene, and he'd get right in this person's face, and they'd tell cut, and you would just turn right away.
When also, especially in between takes, I think when you're in that moment, you got to kind of stay in it. You have to stay in it not only for yourself but for your fellow actors, and it's a tough headspace to live in. I think, especially for my fellow actors. I think I have a certain amount of joy with this job, for sure. I mean, Negan is a character unlike anything I've done before, and there is a lot of joy with Negan. Anyway, he has fun with the torture aspect of the mental games he plays, and so it's important while I'm at work doing those scenes that I sort of enjoy it, and then when it's all said and done, when the take is done or the day is over, it's like I sympathize with everybody, and it's, I did an interview one day after I'd been filming for a while, and I felt myself starting to get emotional, like I hadn't really talked about we never talk about what I've gone through, if Jeffrey Dean Morgan's going through anything playing this character who comes in and just wreaks havoc. And I started kind of revealing some stuff, and I felt myself getting emotional. It was just like, cut, I gotta walk, I gotta step away from this right now, because it's hard. There's no holds barred on that set for anybody, and Negan in particular will get you. I mean, if he's not gonna bash your skull in, and he might, you sure think he's gonna at any given moment. So that kind of intensity all the time, it wears on you. It just does.
We're talking with Jeffrey Dean Morgan, obviously playing Negan on The Walking Dead, and there's a physical thing that you'll see that he does. I noticed it watching you in these takes, where he's doing this thing where he leans back, and it's weird because he'll get in someone's face, but then he'll sort of lean back, and it's very disorienting.
It's very weird. I've never done anything like that before, and that came from one panel of the graphic novel I saw where Negan was kind of leaning back, and I remember I did it briefly in the introduction of the character, the last episode last year. This year, I've kind of adapted this way of moving and talking for Negan, and kind of a go-to move is sort of this lean back that he does, because it's very disconcerting. I think at least that's what I hear. To me, it's going to become like a natural sort of thing to do as soon as I get the bat or Lucille in my hands or put on my leather coat. It's not something I ever do in real life. But everybody, like behind the camera or at Video Village, where the producers and directors live, they're very. It's a disturbing move that Negan does that really does, I think, keeps everybody on their toes. You just don't know what he's going to do.
How much did you kind of find Negan in before the end of last season versus like then you have this break and then you started shooting season 7? Like, how much did your kind of connection to that character evolve?
Yeah, well, for me, I shot 16 last year with not a lot of lead time, and I was in the middle of shooting Good Wife. I still had to finish Good Wife. So I went back to Good Wife, finished it. A week later, I started season 7 of Walking Dead.
Super different characters.
So I didn't have a ton of time just to, normally you kind of want to live in Negan land, and I'd go or pour over graphic novels or whatever and just kind of, but there's been something about Negan, and as different as the physical movements and the way he talks, it's all something I've never done before. And I'm just kind of, I have this graphic novel to look at. It's been a challenge, but I'm not going to say it's been like this totally hard deal for me. For some reason, and it happened in 16, when I remember sitting in that RV waiting for my cue to burst out, and it's going to be Pee-Pee Pants City here real soon. I remember sitting in there thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Because we didn't rehearse. We didn't have time for any of that. And then
they didn't see you till you came out of that trailer.
Yeah, and suddenly there was just this calmness that went over me, and I was like, whatever happens, happens. And that's kind of how the 7's been. I've been getting given some leeway, and so far no one's like said you're doing a crappy job, or you need to reel it in or go more. I think that what I'm aware of is trying to not go over the top with this character, because this world is so real. This world that's been created by the cast and the crew of Walking Dead. It's this, we're dealing with zombies and stuff, but it's a very real world, and it's so easy to come in with a character like Negan and go way over the top, which wouldn't fit into this world. And so I'm always kind of aware of that. I think the problem is we have new directors that come in for every episode, and everybody wants to have this big Negan moment that's crazy over the top. And so trying to reel that in and making sure that he's somehow grounded in reality, because this guy with the red scarf and the baseball bat who comes dancing in and is leaning all over the place and getting in people's faces, it's hard, and you want to make sure he doesn't come off as like a cartoon character, I guess. So that's something I've been very aware of, and hopefully we're getting it right. We'll see. I haven't seen anything,
I know. Crazy.
I'm just let's air.
Well, what did you think of your performance in the finale? When you watched that.
Yeah, look, I felt for the characters, because I was a fan of the show. I'm like, this guy's an ass, this Negan's an ass. It's one of the few things I watched, though, where I didn't second guess everything. I second guess myself a lot. I don't often watch things I do, but I just sort of had to watch that just because I'm a fan of the show, and I wanted to make sure I didn't screw it up too bad. And I thought it was okay. I think it's going to get better. I think I've now lived in this leather coat with a bat in my hands for a little while now, and I think every time I do a scene, it gets a little bit scarier. You know what I mean? It's good. I think it's going to be good.
I'm sure you're happy it's starting to maybe hopefully cool off down in Atlanta with that leather jacket on through the summer.
Yeah.
One thing, Jeffrey, that you and I have spoken a lot about before is, what does this mean? How's he taken over with the Alexandrians? One thing we haven't really spoken about is what's Negan's relationship like with the other Saviors? What's his relationship like with his group? We know in the comics he and Dwight have a complicated situation that I'm sure we'll see this season. But what's his mojo like with his own group?
Yeah, it's an odd relationship he has with the Saviors, because a lot of them, I think, follow him purely out of fear. Right. I think that Negan has kept these people alive. Certainly, if you read, Kirkman just wrote kind of a preamble, Negan's pre-apocalyptic life, and he sent me 48 pages. I think they were sent out with the other comics.
Right.
You get to see a little bit, and he sent it to me right before I think it started being released to the public, which was very interesting to me to see how Negan became Negan. But after the apocalypse hits, the zombies start kind of taking over the world, you see Negan trying to help people, and no one listens to him, and they get killed. And so finally he gets to the point that he's becomes a little bit of a dictator. He kind of becomes Negan's always a foul-mouthed son of a bitch. So he always is colorful with his language, but I think you see him kind of make a shift in how, because he starts off really trying to help people and save people, and when they don't listen to him, they're constantly getting killed. He becomes a little bit more brutal in his tactics, I guess. So I think when you're dealing with the Saviors, the Dwight relationship is interesting, certainly, and I've got a couple guys that I think are very loyal to me, but I think a lot of it is fear based. I think a lot of them are with Negan because they know what will happen if they are not with Negan. And there's some loyal followers, obviously, and I'm hoping we get more into kind of that relationship with his Saviors at some point, because right now it's just we haven't delved that deep into it. You see touches of it throughout, kind of sprinkled without, but some follow him because they know he's going to keep them alive. Obviously he's got the numbers and the know-how. The Sanctuary, he's got some stuff going for him, certainly, that's going to keep people alive, but he keeps people on the straight and narrow. He's not afraid to use Lucille or his iron to make damn sure that people stay in line, you know.
How excited are you for October 24th, the day after the season premiere of The Walking Dead, when people know what they have been wanting to know for months now, which is who was on the receiving end of Lucille?
Yeah. We're all excited about it. I mean, everybody, including those who might not be on the show anymore. You know, I think that whether it's one person or all 10 of them, I think everyone is excited for the start of the show, because it's ridiculous. We're unable to talk about anything, but everybody wants to talk about it. You do press, and it's the constant question. I go through an airport, I go anywhere. Who died? Who's getting Lucille?
What's your go-to answer?
Everybody.
You say a different person each time.
Yeah, I just say everybody. I say they're all done. I said the show is getting turned on its head.
It's like a one-man show now.
Everybody's gonna die, you know. And some people, I think, believe that, and that's fine. It might be one person, it might be all of them. So you have to tune in and see. But yeah, I'm ready for it because you can't talk about anything. It's like being handcuffed.
Yeah.
And I feel like I gave like one interview with Dalton for the magazine, and I mean, why doesn't everybody just read that article? And
I agree.
You know what I mean?
Please read my article.
Yeah, read the article, and that pretty much says it all. But we're all, you know, whoever's left on this show or who's not left on this show, whatever it may be, we're all in the same boat. You know, unfortunately for our heroes of this show, most of them, or all of them, really aren't able to do interviews until after the 23rd, you know. So it's been, a lot of it gets siphoned down to me, and I'm just fucking over it. I don't know what to say anymore. You know, it's one thing, you know, Dalton is like, he covers the show, so he at least has a really good idea. Everybody else is just like, who'd you kill? And tries to trip you up or whatever it is. Or you give an answer and then they rewrite the story completely out of context or different.
Oh, yeah. You should have read Dalton's first draft. It was...
What, you know, you're dealing with this Walking Dead fan base that's so intense.
Yeah.
But you also dealt with the Supernatural fan base, which is so intense. How do you compare those two things? Because both those...
Walking Dead's different. It's just... Look, I love my Supernatural fan base, but I mean, you know, on the way here, we did we did a talk show, the Kelly show.
Right.
Live with Kelly.
Yeah.
And we had people following us down the road, just riding bikes, running down the middle of the road. I mean, you know, God bless Supernatural, but no one did that. You know, Comic-Con was a whole nother experience, and I've been there for the last like 10 years in a row with anything from Watchmen to The Losers to Supernatural but this is it's a different thing. It's a different intensity, and I don't know if it's a little bit different this year because of how we ended 16. I'm not sure. This is my first foray into the fandom that is Walking Dead. But I see how some of the cast get handled by fans. I've witnessed some crazy stuff. I mean, someone followed me home from the set. I think I told you about that.
Yeah.
That had happened right before our interview.
Watch
and
out.
Like it's like, and I live like an hour away from the set. Right. So to follow me home at 1 a.m. and then like try to post my address, I mean, come on, people.
Yeah, there's a line, and 99% of everyone is very good about staying on the right side, but there's always that 1%.
No, I mean, look, it's an awesome fan base, but there's also that, and I guess that's with any fan base. It's just because of the sheer amount of people that watch this show. I mean, and it's everybody. It's people you would never expect. I mean, I know. I was with Norman. I'll say I was with Norman. I spent a lot of time with Norman because he lives in Georgia. He might not be alive on the show, people, just because I'm saying I was with Norman. But we had been riding motorcycles all day, and we were in the middle of nowhere. We stopped to get a coffee, and this lady gets out of her car, and she's probably 75, 80 years old, and she comes up and just flips me off and says, "Fuck you." And Norman falls off his chair laughing, and I'm like, whoa. She goes,
was that because of Good Wife?
Yeah, well, I don't think it was because of Good Wife.
Mom, I told you not to do that.
It was crazy, and she did have her daughters with her, by the way. But then her next question is, where do you live? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to tell you where I live. But it's that kind of passion, which is awesome. We'll see what happens after the first episode airs. I'm not convinced that my life is going to be totally awesome as far as the fan base after the first one airs. I think it's going to take a minute. I think it's going to take a minute for people to get to know the character and love to hate him as opposed to just hate.
Well, I know you got to run in a second, Jeffrey, but I got to ask you, because this is not the only bad guy you're playing, because you're playing this terrifying village vigilante in Desierto, which is opening up Friday, October 14th.
That's correct. Yes. It's a movie that the Cuarons did, who Jonas co-wrote Gravity with his father, who directed Gravity, obviously, and it's myself and Gael Garcia Bernal, and I remember I read the script and it reminded me of, I don't know if you remember Steven Spielberg, one of his if not his first movie, Duel.
Yeah.
It very much kind of reminded me of that, kind of a cat and mouse thriller. And I loved it, and we went out to Baja, Mexico, and we shot this film, and like I remember we literally would help hump cable up the hillside or the cliffside to shoot. It was kind of a bare bones production, and again a thriller about a crazy border patrol guy who has taken vigilante justice at the border into his own hands with some immigrants that are coming over. But now it's kind of taken on this whole nother life politically because of our presidential candidate. I got to be careful how I say things and word things. And so we held back the release until now. So so not only is it a good thriller, and it is, but it also has kind of this political undertone that I'm not completely sure that when we made it, we had any idea that it would turn into what it is.
Interesting timing, to say the least.
Interesting timing. And a lot of it has to do with some smart people that are releasing it. I think it's very timely of them. And they released a trailer of this film overseas that had Trump's whole, Mexicans are criminals and rapists, and that was over the trailer. And let me tell you, that was pretty effective.
Oh, my God.
And there's a trailer now that they have people's tweets over the trailer that think that my character is like this hero and this great American, and it's insane.
Crazy.
But anyway, it's a cool movie. I'm very proud of it, and Jonas Cuarón, because of this movie, is now directing Zorro for Fox, and Gael Garcia is one in a million.
Great cast. Cool. October 14th. It's out. Check that out. Then October 23rd, Walking Dead. Jeffrey D. Moore, dude, thanks for the time.
Thanks,
Always
brother.
love chatting with you.
Always love chatting with you.
Always a good time. We'll chat again October 24th. Okay.
Oh, please, God, let's do that. That would be awesome.
We might not be able to talk to him for a little while.
We'll be back with more on EW Morning Live.
Yeah, let's spend a day doing that.